And welcome back, footy fans, to another episode of Donnie's Disposals. I am your host, Coach Donnie Hess here, back with another AFL round review. Ladies and gentlemen, we are through it. Both of the Sir Douglas Nichols rounds are complete. We were treated to some fascinating footy. The results, shall we say, were interesting. I cannot wait to hop on it. And joining me, one of my favorite people that I love talking with, and sometimes we can go for a while. So hoping this podcast is not 2.5 hours long. Joining me from Los Angeles, my great friend, Mr. Rick Shaibani. Rick, it is great to see you, sir.
Thanks as always for having me, Donnie. Appreciate the kind words. It's always great to chat footy. And yeah, we had a very interesting round, and now we've got the buys. The buys are commencing. The first four teams, I believe,
Mhm.
it's coming around. So yeah, we've got North, Carlton, Doggies, and Port all on bye weeks and all facing unique situations. So let's get into it.
Yep, cannot wait. Cannot wait. Let's jump right into it, sir. Like I said, we were treated to a little bit of everything. We were treated to some
Mhm.
amazing footy. We were treated to some crap footy, and we were treated to some head scratching footy. So, jumping right in, thoughts on this interesting and amazing round 11.
Definitely. Let's do it.
Oy, 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 oy. Let's jump right into it. We'll start off Thursday night footy, which as we kind of said off mic, this has to be game of the round as the Cats edge out the Doggies down at GMHBA Stadium down in Geelong, 127, 113. This was a fantastic game of football. And man, there was even fireworks before this. I want to go to this really, really quickly. The fact that Kane
Go for it.
Corns and Bevo have a biffo before the game even starts. It's and I get it. And the funny and the worst part about it is the media talked about this just as much as this incredible game, which is a little frustrating. But man, King Corns keeps lighting fires with people. I think eventually the Inferno's going to burn him.
Yeah, he's almost like the Skip Bayless of the AFL, isn't he? Always with a hot take and always controversial. But I mean, everyone thought it was going to be all about Bailey Smith and the Bailey Smith Cup. And boy, he's having a great season with the Cats. He's always a firecracker for that team, and he had the last laugh, didn't he?
Yeah, definitely for sure. But I gotta give it to it. Jeremy Cameron, you absolute superstar,
Yeah,
an amazing, amazing performance. Shannon Neal with another fantastic one. Baz didn't did he held his own. I know some people were like,
yeah,
what's gonna be the doggies reaction? But for me, it's almost a little bit on Baz too, because I mean, if you're gonna throw
yeah,
shots about not having to play a Ballarat and playing against Collingwood at that, you got to show up because if you don't show up, they're gonna hang shit on you for sure. So he held
absolutely.
his own. Max Holmes was fantastic. It's great seeing Tom Stewart back in a hoops jersey. I know if you're playing the Cats, it isn't fun seeing Tom Stewart back, but I'm great to see him back and healthy. The Dogs played
Definitely.
well. I mean, Matt Kennedy is now making Carlton fans absolutely pull their hair out because of how fantastic he's been playing. The other thing to think about is there's still no Trelaw and there's still no Darcy. How good can the
Yeah.
doggies be once they get healthy is another thing. This was just an amazing game of football. It was definitely worth getting up at 4:40 in the morning to watch this. Absolutely, chef's kiss. Absolutely, absolutely love this game.
No, absolutely, and you were right. Welcome back, Tom Stewart. You know they've definitely missed him down at Geelong, but Smith and Holmes, 33 disposals apiece.
Hmm.
Holmes had 15 handballs. They were definitely razor sharp as usual. I think even though the doggies had all the momentum, like kind of heading into it, they definitely seemed like the hotter team on paper. Geelong has that great home field advantage. They had Jeremy Cameron giving a vintage performance, like you said. He had 6 goals, no behinds. Have a day, good sir. That was fantastic. And Shannon Neal, I've been a big fan of Shannon Neal for a while now.
Yep.
I think he's finally, maturing enough to where he can be a real threat for them. And no, I think you're right. Bailey Smith, didn't have the scintillating performance that maybe he wanted to, but he'll take the 4 points, I'm sure,
Yep.
and it's definitely putting them in good position because they've got a fairly easy next few weeks on the
Yep.
fixture. You definitely think Geelong should be a top four side based on the way they're currently traveling and just on, they're so well coached. They are so well coached. Chris Scott knows exactly how to get maximum effort out of his players.
Yep.
It's been really great to see how they're just consistent year in and year out. They know what they're doing, and they just continue to unearth young talent when you don't expect them to, because they're
Hmm.
all such an experienced side. But they're figuring it out, and I think the rest of the competition, they know Geelong's a tough out, not just at GMHBA Stadium in general. I think
Hmm.
they're one of the best teams in the competition for a reason.
Yeah, no, they've built a culture at Geelong that's absolutely unmistakable. Guys go down there, they take pay cuts. I have to give a huge shout out to Craig Wessels, our good friend. And I
Definitely.
know he tweeted a couple of times he loved that Shannon Neal must have found Tom Hawkins' last stash of Stickum, because Shannon
Yep.
Neal was marking some of the footy that he wasn't early in the season. So I had to chuckle at that. And the running goal was
Yep.
absolutely magnificent in that one. So let's jump
Yep.
to it. Unfortunately, it kind of goes downhill a little bit as the round goes on.
Right.
Dream time at the G. Yeah, Essendon v Richmond at the G.
Yep.
Unfortunately, didn't pan out the way I know when I tipped. I hoped it would go. It didn't. It didn't end up going that way, as Essendon get an 81-58 win. The
Yep.
Bombers get the 4 points, but man, are they walking out there wounded. Zach Reed goes down. I guess Harry Mackay
Yes.
in the last couple of days has now gone down as well. So they get the 4 points, but they take a few war wounds in the process. And this Richmond Tigers team, again, they're young. They're going to have performances like this. They're going to have off weeks. They're
Yeah.
trying their hardest. They're giving it a mighty crack, but they ran into an Essendon team that just did what they needed to do to get the 4 points.
Absolutely, Donnie, spot on. And yeah, I think a few takeaways from this game. Again, Dreamtime at the G is a big spectacle. It was a little disappointing that it wasn't really a great game of footy, not elite in terms of the competition or the kicking accuracy. But yeah, I think the injuries, like you said, on both sides, Sam Lawler, of course, he's the number one pick for Richmond, having a fine rookie season. He had a hammy problem. Kyle Langford, who I think is frequently the most underrated Bomber player these days, he had a quad problem, so that's a big out for them. One positive for the Bombers, Angus Clark. He's a young kid that they're
Yep.
very high on, and he showed why. He got a AFL Rising Star nomination. I just saw.
Mhm.
Did not see his final stats for
Three
the game.
goals, three goals. I know. I didn't see the
Goals. There
disposals,
you
but he
go.
kicked. He was the leader for the Essendon and in goals kicked in three. And
Yeah,
fantastic again in opening a great debut. Incredible for that young man.
absolutely. And I think yeah, their youngsters are definitely guys to keep an eye on, and Clark kind of exemplifies that. Isaac Kakao is another. He's shown some
Hmm.
flashes. He's still developing, but you can see why they're high on him.
Hmm.
I definitely think that yeah, the Bombers they deserve to win this game, but in terms of just yeah, like they definitely took some injuries they couldn't really afford to get. I definitely think I think Zach Merritt is doing too much. He had a great day once again. And Nick Martin's been good, but he's going to have some injury issues too, if I'm not mistaken. So not really sure where they go from here. They've got who do they have this coming week? They've got Brisbane. That's not going to be easy at the Gabba. So I think the Bombers they still haven't convinced me yet. They have moments where they're definitely looking. You can see what they're going for, right? In the same way that you can kind of see Richmond again. That we were talking about this shortly before we started rolling here. Richmond with those injuries and with their stretch of games coming up, it's probably going to get worse before it gets better there. But
Yep.
you get the feeling, they're winning some quarters here and there. They're going to string together some better passages of play soon with the young list that they have. Adam Uze is definitely the right man for the job, I reckon. It's
Mm.
just, this is a comprehensive rebuild. Some fans might still be in denial about that at Richmond, but this is a long-term rebuild. And I think Noah Balta, of course, that situation has been talked to death by the footy media. Messy situation. Of course, the joke is he's got a curfew. He's in high school again because he's not available for so many of these matches. It's got to be so frustrating for the Tigers. But yeah, no Tom Lynch, Nankervis, he wasn't available either. So you get the feeling that Nank will be back sooner than Lynch, but I know Lynch had a concussion, but hopefully they can get them back in the next 2 weeks or so. But Richmond's just not a very impressive club. They have their moments, they have flashes, but they're a young side. Young sides are always going to struggle with inconsistency, especially in the modern game, right?
Yeah.
So,
Yep. No,
yeah,
definitely for sure. They cut deep. I mean, moving out some of the veterans that they did, and again, I
sure.
think they're banking on this young core of
Yeah,
Lawler, of John T, Smiley, who still hasn't even debuted yet, and a couple of the others, all
that's
kind
right.
of growing up together, like a little bit like what Hawthorn did under just before Clarko with your
Sure.
Hodge, your Franklin, your with that little group. That I think they're kind of banking on that this super group of talent that all so many top 15 players all drafted in one draft that they can kind of grow up and become a core together. So I don't
Yeah.
mind it. It's gonna cause some pain, but they're a scrappy bunch. They get after it. So it is one of those where I think they're gonna throw a few punches as the rest of the season goes. They're gonna
Mhm.
surprise a few people. It's when they do and who they do it to would be the biggest question for me. So let's
Yeah.
jump to it. And the one I know is going to make my co-host smile, that big old smile of his, as the big sound get a nice win over the Carlton
Yeah.
Blues, 110-82. The Giants with the win. And the
Hmm.
Carlton's struggle season continues. But man, I gotta give my plaudits. I know some people are like, but coach, you're a Swans fans. I will give my plaudits. 250 games. Toby Green, stand up, you legend. What a game for 250. He showed out.
He absolutely did. And congrats to Toby. He's a legend of the Giants. And, it's hard to think about what he can't do with the Sharon in his hand because he's just so dangerous, so efficient, whether it's inside 50 or otherwise. You knew he was going to have a big time performance, and he sure did. And it was an encouraging rebound. Like it's been a very strange month for us winning down in Geelong, which we always seem to do, and then bouncing back after, some tough losses, getting a win over Carlton. As you know, as a Swans man, for the New South Wales teams, you don't get that many opportunities to play in Melbourne, either
Mhm.
at G or at Marvel Stadium. Of course, the Giants won at Marvel. So, and boy, at Marvel, you could hear the energy of the crowd just waxing and waning the way Carlton waxes and wanes. It's really depressing that they are a 4-7 club with, I saw this the other day, the third easiest fixture in the competition this year. Third easiest. So it's like Groundhog Day. Carlton has to do some soul searching. Carlton, Bossy has to go back to the drawing board. How is this list that's this talented underachieving this bad? Like, why can't they kick more efficiently? All these things we've been asking for so long.
Mhm.
And I mean, this is a club that's lost like 14 of its last 20 dating back to last year.
Mhm.
It's clearly, and all these issues, the efficiency kicking issues, you notice they keep going on from coaching regime to coaching regime. There's long-term cultural issues at Carlton, and it's high time we admit it because it's just they're a club that is always going to have so much scrutiny. Apart from Collingwood, maybe Hawthorn, maybe the Doggies. There's probably not a more scrutinized club in the competition, right? Carlton is always expected to contend, and they should be content. They should be top four with this. We all know this, but every week it's just they can't connect at crucial moments. They will completely fizz out in the third quarter after they've had an elite second quarter. And there were a couple of times against the Giants where they just gave up easy goals off turnover, or they kicked two goals in quick succession. Giants kicked two goals in quick succession. It
Yep.
was just there's so much talent on this list, and they should be. It's just crazy because the Blues just have everything. They have all the ingredients, and yet they just can't unlock everything at once, and
Mhm.
it's just maddeningly inconsistent. And yeah, but I mean, the crowd was just yeah. Again, you could just when it was quiet, it was deathly quiet. When it was loud, it was insanely loud. And kudos to the
Mhm.
Giants fans. There was a small but loyal batch of them. Of course, Toby Green's a Melbourne boy. I'm sure he had extended family in attendance. But yeah, no, that was the bounce back win the Giants needed. Lucky Ash, he's had a hell of a season. He
Mhm.
might be in the running for best and fairest this year if he plays his cards right. Harvey Thomas is obviously a young kid that I'm a big fan of. Callum Brown, he is such a good. Hogan has had a big influence on him, you can tell, because Callum Brown is such a good contested mark. He's a strong, big body at center half forward, and you saw him kick a nice goal from the boundary. He's got that Gaelic football background. They can do those corner kicks very well. So he's been very consistent for us. I really like the way he's developed. Tom Green has been a little quiet lately. It sucks not having Canelio and Kelly healthy. Like the sooner we get them back, the better, as far as
And
I'm
Callahan
concerned.
too.
Callahan, yeah, Callahan has been banged up too. That's unfortunate, but I love what O'Halloran's been doing. I think he's stepped up in a major way. Jacob Ware, he's not there yet, but as you probably know, Giants are top of the ladder in VFL. He's had some good moments there. Lecalier, he just got back to senior footy level, and he had a great moment. I think it was mid third quarter, maybe mid second quarter, where it looked like his man had him beat. He wasn't on Curnow. I think he might have been on Mackay. But yeah, his man had an extra step on him, and you didn't think he was gonna make a play on the ball. But Alier has that awesome closing speed, fisted away at the last minute. That's a golden fist nominee right there for sure. It's
Mhm.
yeah, he's definitely shown a lot of moxie, I think you could say. Given the position they play, given their backgrounds, the Mac Andrew comparison is kind of apt, but I reckon he's a lot bigger than Mac Andrew is in terms of
Mhm.
just how well built he is already. Aaliyah can be as good as he wants to be. I reckon he's gonna be, able to string some senior footy games together down the latter half of the season if he plays his cards right.
Well, and the best part is even if he doesn't, it brings well versed depth
It
to it
does.
to a team that
Yeah.
needs it, because that's a spot that needs to be strong, because you're strong with Hogan. When
Mhm.
Stringer comes back, it gives you just one more. It gives you one more arrow in the quiver.
Sure.
You've got Toby Green. You've got the lightning small midfield forwards that you have there. This is a Giants team that just on paper could be a finals, could be a premiership team. They've been a little inconsistent, but they have been a team that sometimes they have this lull in the middle of the year, and then
Yeah.
they find their form sometimes around rounds 15, 16, 17, and then like a couple of
Yeah.
years ago can get on a run and can be quite a difficult team to go on. No, I completely agree with you. This is a Giants
Yeah.
team that on their day when they're healthy can be incredibly good and fun to watch for sure. But I am with you on Carlton. This is the most frustrating as a footy fan. Okay, if I
Hmm.
take off my red hat, if I put on my coach's hat, this is the most frustrating one of the most frustrating clubs in the competition, because just on paper, on the names, Kerno, Mackay, Walsh, Crippa, McGovern, Akers, all of these Decone.
God,
If you look at the name Sod, Wiedering, so many really good players,
Jesse Montlaw.
and Jesse Motlop, either Elijah or Ollie Holland when they're both going
Sure.
well. This is a deep team with a lot of really good players. The problem is there's just something not clicking between the midfield and the forwards. It's almost a little bit like the buddy centric issue that Swans used to have, as they
A
see
little.
McCurno or
Yeah.
Mackay, and they think that the best way to get it to him is to bomb it up high and let the big guy go get it. Well, the
Yeah.
problem is that when everybody knows that's what's going to happen, two or three defenders come in. They're never going to contested mark with so many hands in there. They've got to lower their eyes and start finding a way to use to use a guy like Benz, use a guy like oh God, who else was that small forward? Jesse Motlop, Martin,
Yeah.
not Martin, Martin left. Just they have weapons that they should be able to use, even small forward weapons that they
Yeah.
should be able to capitalize, and they're just not doing it. So I know several Baggers fans, and I know they're tearing their hair out because they just, again,
Yeah.
it's another season, it's another section of the season where if you really look at it, they probably are playing good enough footy they should win. But it's their execution going forward, and this season's bugaboo has been fourth quarter collapses, has
Yeah.
been their absolute Achilles heel this year. So I
They've
don't know
let
what
they've
Loss
led at
needs to do.
halftime. They've led at halftime in
10
all
times.
three games.
Yeah.
Yeah. exactly. That's crazy.
No,
Absolutely
it's
crazy.
been nuts, absolutely nuts.
Yeah,
So
and against the Giants, yeah, like the third quarter, it was just flatlining, and you could tell, like you could tell with the players' body language. I think that's something that Vossi just has to take care of
mhm,
because this is a team that looks demoralized. It's not just that
yep,
they're playing poor footing; they
yep.
look demoralized. They've got a bye week this coming week, and then they've
Probably
got,
the perfectly timed bye week for them because
but then
they
they've got,
really need to go into the lab and do some communicating because there
yeah,
is a miscommunication between midfield and forward. And I,
yeah,
I don't know if they're going to be able to fix their fourth quarter fades. Maybe they have to change how they start off in the fourth quarter. Maybe they need to be tempered back a little bit, hold back their pressure a little bit so they have a little bit more, a few more petrol tickets come the fourth quarter. I don't know how to fix that. That's something that I think maybe next year's preseason, the high performance people need to maybe work on some conditioning for later games. I don't know. It's just it's they're an enigma that really annoy me because I look at them on paper and I think flag contender, I think top four side. The
yeah.
performances are just not there, and that's the
And
most
apart from that,
frustrating part.
and apart from that fluke win over Geelong, what was it like a month ago? It feels
Mhm.
like eternity ago. Apart from that, they have not beaten anybody good. And
Yep.
again, this is a very easy schedule or
Yeah.
fixture. So
Unfortunately, let's go to MCG. This one
yeah,
is a little bit of a shocker for me as the Brisbane Lions
mm,
come down to Melbourne and put a whooping on the once mighty Hawthorn Hawks 93-60. And I
yeah,
hate saying that one player is making a difference, but damn, is this team really tail spinning since Will Day went down.
yeah. Their midfield has really fallen away, and it shows. Like I know Hawthorn, they've got some young kids, they've got some really confident kids. You know, Sam Mitchell definitely has them believing in themselves. And but this was a litmus test game, and they failed on their home turf, which is
Mhm.
big. And that's the thing that should be scary to the rest of the competition, I reckon, is because how did Brisbane win a flag last year? How did they start getting that patch of form that got them that flag? They could win at the MCG when it mattered. The fact that they did, again, if you're a New South Wales team, if you're a Queensland team, any interstate team, you only get a certain number of times to impress people at the MCG. And the Lions absolutely did that. And it showed that Hawthorn isn't, they're definitely not a top four side. I think they're going to have to, get under the hood or bonnet, to use the Aussieism, and fix it because, yeah, they've definitely fallen away. It's not just the lack of day or some other of their key players. Like, they just haven't been defending as well. Their pressure rates haven't been great. Again, the midfield, Brisbane. How do you like this? Lockie Neal had 32 touches on his 32nd birthday. So kudos to him for that. You wonder if he might be in the running for a third Brownlow. Never say never. Achi had 4 goals. That was really nice. And Charlie
Mhm.
Cameron gets a hat trick, 3 goals for him. He had
in
kind of
like in like 5.5 minutes. That was nuts. And,
he had been
and the
so
announcers,
quiet.
and my favorite part about that was the announcers had commented like less than 30 seconds before Cameron kicks his first goal. Well, Charlie Cameron's been a little bit quiet. Bang. The next play slips to Cameron. Cameron buries it, and you can tell the announcers were like, "Oh, there went that particular comment."
Pretty
Like
much.
30 seconds later, it comes right back down, and he kicks his second in less than a minute. I was like, that was insane. No, this is
And
this is
you look at
this is a
and
Lions team that you know why they won the premiership last year because they're getting the performances from Lockie Neal, from both Ashcroft brothers,
yeah,
Luke McCluggage. They're maybe not getting the best out of Reyna and Bailey, but they're getting enough that they're
sure.
winning games. They're getting performances from Harris Andrews in their backline. Kitty Coleman gets rested, but the fact that
Mm,
he's still building up again, what's scary is Dane Zorko is having a renaissance of his career. It is insane. I even agree with some. I know Lockie Neal's one of their best players, but right now Dane Zorko, it's hard not to say he's not going to win the Brisbane Lions best and fairest because it is
yeah,
insane what he's been doing at halfback. It
yeah.
absolutely insane what that
At
man
his
has been
age, too.
doing. Oh
At
yeah.
his age, he's been incredibly productive. You wonder, given how long Pendles and Sidebottom are going at Collingwood, you wonder if Zorko is just going to keep playing on until his body gives out. But one stat that I did want to bring up, here, Donnie, just in terms of
Sure.
how much Brisbane dominated. What was interesting was that they were almost even at the inside 50s. Brisbane had 53, Hawthorn had 51. Brisbane won the free kick count by 10, but efficiency inside 50. Hawthorn's only 45%, five
Mhm.
percentage points below their average this season. So that kind of screwed them over, even though they were winning a lot of hitouts from stoppages. That I think overall, Brisbane smacked them in center clearances, but overall, like, they were trying some different things in the midfield. It just wasn't working. And
Mhm.
you wonder, I mean, with Brisbane, it's like, who do you tap? Because Zorko is so damaging. Neil is so damaging. McCluggage is so damaging. Mentioning Rayner and Bailey, they have very specific roles where they can kind of take advantage if Neil is tapped or if McCluggage is having a slow day.
Mhm.
I think you really do have to tip your hat to Chris Fagan because like he's always just thinking one step ahead. They run and carry the ball really well, physical, and they're exactly where they want to be because the Victorian media is counting them out. They want the
Mhm.
doggies to be the flag favorites. They want the Pies to be the flag favorites. But Brisbane could be very, very dangerous in September once again.
Yep, nope, 100% with you on that. Absolutely, completely agree with you on that. So let's jump to it. I don't want to do it, but I kind of want to. Like I'm literally looking at the scores, and can we do an amalgamation because the next four really all have the same kind of mantra. One team very good, scores over 100 points. The other team not so good and falls short. As literally, I can go right one by one. Collingwood beat North Melbourne 108-63. Freo Dockers beat the Port Adelaide Power 151. The Adelaide Crows smashed West Coast 128-62. And the one that hurts so bad to say, but I will say it, Melbourne Demons put a whooping on the Swans 131-78. I know
Yep,
that's an amalgamation of four games, but all four really kind of had the same thing. For
I know.
half to three quarters of the game, it's competitive. And then in the fourth quarter of the second half, the team that won put the pedal to the metal. I mean,
Yeah,
Collingwood did it to North in the fourth quarter. Frio really did it in the second half over Port Adelaide. Adelaide pretty much had West Coast for most of the game, but it really kind of started to blow out in the second half. And
yeah,
Sydney's the second half of the second quarter, from then on, it got ridiculous at times. So not even
yeah,
gonna lie on that one. I mean, like I said, I know it's four games, but I can't not notice the pattern. All three of the
sure.
winning teams put up triple digits, and all three of them kind of have the same kind of arch to them.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were kind of talking about it before we started rolling tonight. It's particularly Frio, Port Adelaide, and Collingwood North felt like the same game because it was pretty close for three quarters, and then the fourth quarter was a bad joke. Like I think it was in the Collingwood game, they outscored North 7 goals to 1 in the final
Hmm.
term.
Yep.
And Collingwood didn't even kick that after. They were
Yep.
15 goals to 18. And
Yep.
I mean, Craig McRae is one of the best coaches in the league, full stop. He's got the Pies in great form. They did not have Pendles. And,
No Pendles, no more, no Pendles, no more, no Dugowie, I
that's,
believe.
yeah,
There's several, and I think they
yeah.
rested side bottom in this game. So
They did
they're
rest side bottom.
they're playing some of their seconds. They're getting Ed Allen. They're getting
Yeah,
Olive Markov played in this game, though he was
he
at
did.
Bunnings when he found out. It's
He
like
did.
this is the Collingwood Magpies team that they're just finding ways to win. They're getting it
They
done
are.
when they need to. This is a lot like their premiership year in 2022, which is kind of scary
Mm,
to think that this
yeah,
this Pies team that I know everybody talks about is the oldest team in the entire competition, but it's
that's true.
experienced in ways that it's very hard to get by. They're not old, they're just experienced in many ways.
That's very
Fremantle
true.
was kind of the same. Fremantle, like Port Adelaide again, this enigma that really annoys me this year because all I keep hearing now from all the Victorian media every time Port Adelaide loses by more than 30 points is when are they going to let Josh Carr have the job? When is Hinkley going to
Yeah,
step away? It is doing my head in. Really, how much that the Victorian media really want Hinkley to let go. I don't know if he will. He's a very stubborn man. So I don't know if
Mm,
that'll happen. And I don't think Josh Carr is going to sit there and try to do anything with Kashi. I think Kashi is enough of a loyal person to Hinckley that I don't think anything is going to
yeah.
happen. So it really does kind of come off like the Victoria media whinging about something that really they have no control over. And just it kind of almost seems like a vendetta. The Crows,
Mm,
I mean, they beat the Eagles. I mean, I hate bicing it down my Eagles supporters. I love you, but let's just be straight up honest. The Crows were the better team in the first place. That was not one I was looking at anywhere close. And I will willingly raise my hand. The Swans were putrid at times. It's very, very frustrating. I get
yeah.
that there's injuries, but I mean, I was inundated with so many people on my timeline that are like, is Dean Cox over his head? I don't
Mm,
think so. I really don't. I just think that there's enough changes. There's been enough change. It's thrown some of the confidence of this team. There's a few things that need to change. Yes, there's injuries. Yes, I know that they're important players. You don't make up an Errol Goulden, a Tommy Papley. Cal Mills is back and then decides to be a bonehead and gets himself suspended right off the bat. So he gets one
yep.
game in, one game off, plus a bye round in round 14 coming up. So unfortunately, it's going to be very choppy footy for the captain coming back. So we'll have to see. So, I mean, like I said, I hate to throw 4 games together, but really, they all kind of had the same kind of thing there. So I thought, well, we'll shorten up the episode just the tiniest bit because I don't want to talk about 4 blowouts because that's really what they were. And let's go to the one that's got just again a little bit like the Western Bulldogs. We had just as much fireworks off the field as good old Ross Lyon throws out that the Gold Coast Suns are the AFL's nepo babies, and that
Mm,
really ruffled some feathers, especially in the Gold Coast upper things. But the
yeah.
Suns get the last laugh in the end, getting an 80-61 win. But
Yeah.
I tuned into this game after the Swans game was over. Man, this was a rough game to watch because neither
Yeah.
team was fantastic. Neither team was really great. The Suns get a win on the road at Marvel Stadium. Congratulations, Dimma. You finally win at Marvel Stadium. Good
That's
job.
true.
Good
That's true.
job. That's only your first win since you made the idiotic comments about Marvel having no soul. First win in like 5 years. But man,
True. Yeah.
this was just
I,
such an unimpressive game. The Suns did what they needed to do. They get a win on the road. Congratulations. But this just was not an entertaining game to watch. I did not
yeah.
enjoy it. I mean, I think I almost fell asleep halfway through the third quarter because I just was not entertained by this game, unfortunately.
Yeah. No, I mean, definitely not. You know, the Suns, to their credit, have had a really good string of form. You know, they kept the streak alive in Darwin, 2 very impressive wins, sellout crowd wins, I should note. You know,
Yep.
they're definitely getting some great support up in Darwin that maybe wasn't there when they first announced that deal. But yeah, always good to have footy up there. Love that stadium. I've been there many a time myself. But yeah, no, Suns, they're 8-2. No one will criticize them for that. Their percentage is still really, really good. So they could kind of, you hate to say they could afford a lackluster win. But yeah, you know, St. Kilda did kind of come towards the end and try to attempt a little mini comeback, only to fall short. Definitely not the most inspiring game of footy ever, but I will say that several of the Sun stars are playing inspiring footy. It's almost routine to see Noah Anderson get 35 touches of the footy. You know, Ben Long is one of the most improved players in the competition. Matthew Lloyd was saying that just last week on in the media. You know, I think the Suns, they're not as reliant as they used to be on guys like Matt Andrew, Matty Rowell, Noah Anderson, Ben King. King and Rowell were pretty quiet on the weekend, but they found ways to move the ball pretty effectively without them. Tuke Miller, of course, he had his 200th up in Darwin. He's been a hell of a player for so many years. Played on a lot of bad teams. Now he's loving every minute of the success that they're having. And Dimma's comments, Ross Lyon's comments, I like it. I like having a little bit of banter. I like some shots fired moments from time to time in footy. It keeps it entertaining, keeps it from getting stale, even if, like you said, the on-field product might be a little stale. St. Kilda, I mean, panic alarm is going off. Losing to West Coast was bad enough. St. Kilda needs to do what Melbourne is doing. And going back to the games you kind of breezed through, Melbourne Demons, after starting 0-5, they've won 5 of their 6. They're in much better form. Kazi Pickett turned back the clock. I shouldn't even say turn back the clock because he's not that old, right? But
Hmm.
playing an indigenous Guernsey that his dad designed, kicking 5 goals, that's a hell of a day right there. So take a bow, Kazi Pickett. He's been running through the midfield more. Talking about players or teams being too centered on one guy, it felt like the Demons were almost too Max Golan centric. As amazing as he is, and he was having a great year even when they were starting wins, right? But having him and Petrarca just playing their regular roles and then kind of just tossing the magnets around them, it's working out for the D's. They haven't had the strongest schedule as of late, but they look better than Hawthorn right now. They
Hmm.
smacked Sydney around, and I think the Demons, some people are already saying, I won't go this far. Some people are already saying, Brisbane started 0-3, 0-4 last year, and then they just took off. I don't think the D's list is that talented, but for now, they're playing watchable footy, which they were not doing at the start of the year. Simon Goodwin is definitely off the hot seat, and they still have some unanswered questions, but Clayton Oliver is back to form. Petrarca is back to form. I think they're doing things pretty well at the moment. And it's hard to change philosophies mid-season. That's really hard to do as a coach, as you know. But Goodwin kind of just, mixing things up, probably, getting some more input from his assistant coaches. There's better communication. Just the vibe they're better with the D's. So I think they could be sneaky good if they play their cards right during this next month or so. Now, going back to Frio and Port, Frio has been they still haven't convinced me. They're not top four. I don't even know if they're top eight, but they are capable of really turning on the Jets. I think Sam Kwiatkowski has had a great season for them so far. Murphy Reed, this kid kicking 4 goals on the weekend, I was shocked he didn't get the Rising Star nomination. He's really becoming an exciting player to watch over there, and they need more forward targets. Jai Amos, he's a great athlete, great overhead mark, hasn't been as accurate as I like, but he's someone that they can definitely rely on for a big target to draw attention away from Michael Frederick or Luke Jackson. He had a great game. I'm curious. I know he's only playing ruck since Tracy's out, but or Darcy's out, I should say. But yeah, no, I think Frio is gradually getting it together. It's just Justin Longmire. Whenever they get some momentum going, I mean, look at them now. They're ninth on the ladder. They've won 3 of their last 5. He always seems to just lose one game that he shouldn't. So I'm still worried about Frio, but they've looked a lot better in the last few weeks. You're right about Port. At some point, they have to pull the plug, I feel, but you're right. Kashi is just, he's a little too conservative, plays his cards a little too close to the vest. You're right. He is loyal to Ken Hinkley, and Hinkley's done a lot for that club, but all good things have to come to an end. It's been a frustrating year for Port. Again, they're a talented list, but apart from maybe Georgiadis and maybe Willie Rioli, no one put their hands up yesterday. And I will say one thing, since we haven't addressed it yet, it's BS to give Alex Pierce a 3-game suspension. I was heated when that happened. Give it a fine and a 1-game suspension at most. He had eyes for the footy, pissing down rain, bad conditions, shoulder clips Darcy Burn-Jones. He gets concussed. That's really unfortunate. But when you're going back with the flight of the ball, if you're Burn-Jones, you're putting yourself at risk. And Pierce, couldn't go for the mark. He had to just brace for contact. So I think that's very unfortunate. 3-game suspension is ludicrous. I'm not sure how you feel, but that's how I feel. And briefly going back
Isn't
to
as I kind of stated earlier in the year, unfortunately, we can, and pardon me, we can whinge all we want. We can whinge and suck it up. It's the reality that we have. I think it's going to change because of moments like this. They have to put in the footy accident, and I get it, okay?
right,
But uh, it's the inconsistencies of the MRO's decisions that I think is the most frustrating point for me, because there are moments where they sit here and they tell us all the time that the head is sacrosanct. They can't hit it, but then they put in caveats to get away with being able to hit somebody in the head. So I'm
yep,
like, I'm kind of bouncing off the walls because I'm like, either you need to, You need to write into the metrics the footy accident. Or
Yeah.
eventually, and I've said this a couple of times, I'm still interested to hear what Australians think of this. Eventually, it's just going to come to the point where when these kids get drafted, they just sign a waiver that says, "I know I'm going to get hurt. I
Mhm.
can't sue the league anymore." Like,
Yeah.
because the reason they are having the discussions that they are having is because of the class action lawsuits because of concussions. Let's just be
Yep.
100% honest, and that is it is I'm not angry with the players that are doing the class action lawsuit. I'm not. I get it. But the AFL is being so reactive with it that it almost is becoming a farce because
Right.
they're making rules. The Paul Curtis one is another one. It's a footy accident. Give the kid a
That drove me
suspension.
crazy.
Tell him,
Yeah.
hey, use your freaking head when you tackle next time and move on. The one with the kid where he hits the knee and gets knocked out that I went off on that one
Yeah.
because that's a footy accident. I don't think anybody should be suspended at all because the kid that's coming in that got knocked out came in out of control and just happened to tag the Archer from North Melbourne.
Right.
The
Right.
the
I remember.
knee and he tags Archer's knee and knocks himself out. Well, Archer almost got his knee destroyed too and got suspended in the prom. So I don't. I
Right.
just
Right.
the Matrix is pretty self-explanatory. So we can sit here and whinge and suck it up. I get it. And I completely agree with you. Give him a game because he concussed Burn Jones. I don't think nobody's doing it intentionally, okay?
Yeah.
But the problem is that if you're going to sit here and make rules about, well, you can't hit the head, you can't do this, they're in a
Right.
no-win situation. They're literally in a no-win situation. I agree with
There
most
has to
Fremantle
be
fans,
there has to be nuance. There just has to
but
be.
they
And
don't have it in right now. So we're sitting here. So
yeah.
many footy fans are sitting here complaining. They've pretty much set the standard. You're just gonna have to eat it the rest of this year. I think Dylan and the rules committee are going to go in and make some changes. I still
Yeah.
find it interesting that I've talked to a few of them is that I still don't understand. I don't understand how the whole appeal process thing and maybe it's my American brain. Maybe it's the NFL hands down a suspension. You just eat it. You take it. You're going to do it. I don't really get this. When the AFL makes a decision, you just deal with it, and the whole appealing thing. Just I don't know, but I'm 100% with you. I don't think it should be suspendable. I don't think it should be suspendable, but it is. It's three
Yeah.
games. He's gonna lose. I'm gonna say it now, and I don't think I'm jumping off too high a limb. He's gonna lose this because they're gonna say you didn't have to brace for contact. You need to play the ball. It's a little bit like the Peter Wright one on Harry
A little.
Cunningham a
Yeah.
couple of years ago. It's the same thing. Peter Wright doesn't play the ball. He hits the man trying to protect himself, which again I find it interesting that a guy that's 60 kilos lighter than you and is 6 to 7 inches shorter than you can hurt you when you're the bigger man coming at a higher speed. I don't get where he had to brace. I don't get where he couldn't, but that again, that's maybe it's a little bit of the Swans fan in me. So I apologize to Essendon fans. But
But
that's what I
going back.
mean. But that's
Yeah.
what I mean. Like that's
Right.
what the AFL is telling. The AFL is telling you, well, forget your body, play the footy.
Yeah, and you can't always do that. I think yeah, no, I appreciate those insights. It's just going to be an endless frustration, unfortunately, and it is what it is.
It's an
But
endless frustration, but it's something that the AFL has pretty much put a line in the sand. This is it,
it's they're
and that's
they're
the problem.
they're between a rock and a hard place,
Oh,
and they know it.
exactly.
They're just not saying the quiet part out loud. But
Yep.
going back to some of the other matches that we kind of glossed over, I do think we'll go back to Adelaide West Coast. I think that one was I saw the majority of that game, like the first half, part of the third quarter. It was definitely a surprisingly good contest at first. Again, much like Richmond, West Coast is just looking for proof of concept. They've been so bad for so long. They finally got the monkey off their back by beating St. Kilda, but they're still, wooden spooners for a reason. Adelaide, they rested Tex Walker, and makes sense when you're going up
Hmm.
Spooners.
I
But I
called
think
that. I called
I
that.
think
I said them playing West Coast. I said won't be surprised if Tex Walker gets a
sure.
nice bye week.
Well, I mean,
I know he'll probably hate it because he could have kicked six on West Coast, like legitimately.
sure,
But,
sure.
but
But
honestly, it is brilliant coaching to give him a bye week in a week where eh, take a
mhm.
bye week, bud. Take it. You're fine.
Yeah,
We need you for the bigger
I
game.
like yeah, and I like the way their forward line is looking. You assume that Tex might hang up the boots at the end of the year. You know, he's I think 36, 37. So yeah, I mean, but Phil Thorpe and Fogarty, like they're more than capable, I think, at this point. One guy who hasn't been kicking as many goals as he used to is Rankin. I know they're playing him a little more in the midfield this year, but you get the feeling that like if they can unlock him, like that's the one key component that they're missing. Because the Crows back line, it was really concerning at the start of the year. I think they were in a lot of strife. They were definitely conceding far too much. I think like their first four opponents scored 100 plus on them, but something like that. But yeah, the Crows, they're looking quietly confident. I think, big win in the showdown always gives you some confidence if you're the Adelaide Crows. Same thing with Port Adelaide. Obviously, it didn't go their way this time, but the Crows are slowly stringing together some good footing. I think, they're fourth on the ladder right now. They've won three of their last five, and they've got Sydney up next. So 7-4 record. I still don't think they're top four, but they can definitely make things interesting. And obviously, their goal, given how poorly they finished last year, their goal this year is just make finals, and then the rest will take care of itself. Because Matty Nix knows that's, snapping the finals drought is the biggest deal for the Crows. So again, their percentage is great. I think, like the Suns, they can kind of not bide their time, but they've got a lot of percentage already. The top four is still in sight. They just need to take it 1 week at a time. So
Mhm.
Crows are in great shape. Eagles getting pretty ugly. Although again, there's a play where they look okay. Everyone talks about Harley Reid, of course, but Brady Huff is another young kid who is looking pretty good. I think if he can, again, keep stringing some senior footy together and, he might have to take his lumps because they're such a bad side this year. But he's a guy that's worth keeping an eye on for West Coast. I like
Definitely.
what I've seen from him so far. And then lastly, just going briefly to Collingwood North. Again, kudos to North for sticking with Collingwood for four quarters, or three quarters, I should say. That wasn't easy, but, same old for North, unfortunately. Like you said, Paul Curtis, that suspension was a tough pill to swallow because he's having a great season. I like what I've seen from him. My guy Tristan Cherry, he's
Mhm.
quickly becoming one of the best ruck in the league, one of the best rucks in the league. Excuse me. Jack Darling has been surprisingly a good fit for North. Always good to have another veteran guy on the side, but it's just getting sad. Like, I mean, Clarko, there just has to be proof of concept with the Roos. They have such a loyal fan base. They've waited so long to just like play competently, play competitively every week, and it's just the results have to just start coming. They just have to. It's getting very concerning overall. Even though again they have individual guys who are putting their hands up, they're locking in guys like Davies Uniacke, for a long-term extension. Sheasel is still having a great year overall, but yeah, there's just not much going on at North, and it's unfortunate because the ingredients are there. It's just not working. It just isn't. And drawing with Brisbane, that was such a weird game. But I mean, it gave them momentum to get the win the following week. But then this past week, it was back to square one almost. Again, going head to head with the top four side like Collingwood for three quarters. Easy to chalk that up as a moral victory, but we know Clarko doesn't care about moral victories. So
Mhm.
it's just, yeah, it's just been pretty tough for the Roos. I think maybe after the bye they can. They've got West Coast coming up soon on the schedule. They've got opportunities. I'm not going to say they don't, but it's just depressing, right?
Unfortunately, I think they're growing. I think Paul, honestly, if Paul Curtis doesn't get suspended there, I think Paul Curtis definitely is maybe even in the running for all Australian. He's been
He's been
One of
great.
North's best players. I think
Well, one hit,
Luke Parker has come down
yeah,
from Sydney and been Luke Parker, which
yeah.
annoys me as a Swans fan because of some of the injuries this year that I really wish we could
You
have
guys
kept
could
him.
use him. You
But
guys could be,
but I understand it and respect it, and I'm happy that Luke is playing good footy
yeah,
down at North at all. So that's like I said,
yeah,
it was a weird round. It was a weird round of footy. Like I said, entertaining. Again, I love Sir Douglas Nichols' round. The
it's
Guernseys
fun.
were
Yeah.
absolutely magnificent. So let's jump to it. The burning questions, and
Mhm.
I'm fascinated because as a fellow American, we're used to the NFL bye rounds, but they're not as obvious sometimes. Sometimes there's two teams here there. So
I've frequently said that the NFL should do something similar. Having the bye weeks, even if they're not mid-year, have them in 3 consecutive weeks or 4 consecutive weeks, obviously because there's
yeah,
more teams in the NFL. But
yeah, just a few.
just a few, 32.
So,
But it's yeah, no, I like the way the AFL does it. Obviously, the cyclone in Queensland definitely mucked things up at first, that for this year. So it's not going to be 6 teams on a bye, 6 more, and then the final 6 in what is it, round 14? Yeah, round 14.
yeah, well, I think it was going to be 4-2 4 or something to that effect. But yeah, it was a little bit funky. But no, the reason that I want to ask this is because I've heard some people that have heard some discussions, some talks about, and pre-mic, I kind of told you one of my ideas that I think they should maybe do to kind of maybe shorten the season just the tiniest bit, but also throw some intrigue. So since we're hitting the bye weeks, do you like the bye weeks? And if not, what would you do to change them? Would you do 9 teams off, 9 teams on, so we shorten the bye weeks to just 2 weeks? Do you like this for spread out over a month? Your thoughts on the bye weeks, and if you would change anything, what would they be?
Right. Like I said, I think the 6-6-6 over 3 consecutive rounds is a positive overall. I think, again, the league is kind of experimenting with it for a reason because inevitably, like, and I'm sure this is true in like, whatever players association surveys they send out or, whatever the players feedback and the coaching feedback is, you would hope that AFL House is able to kind of take that on board when I wish they would just release the fixture all at once. That's kind of like a post-COVID thing they've kept doing, which I think is kind of silly at this point. But yeah,
Well,
I think if they wanted to do something like you said, stretch it out a little bit more, it could conceivably be done. I think the bigger issue is, sometimes a bye can be a curse, as we know. Chris Scott and Geelong have they've been so good, but they are so bad coming off the bye. I think sometimes we know it's a long season. We know all those niggling injuries can frequently bite you in the ass this time of year. Players need to rest their bodies. But as we know, like buys can sometimes kill a team's momentum and just kind of, things might be off for whatever reason post buy. So I think it's always just a good opportunity to, get back to the basics from structure and game prep standpoint, and also just to train intelligently, make sure players aren't overtraining and that they're getting all the recovery that they can get. Because
mhm.
again, as we know, with the long season, in terms of the length of the season, if is 23 rounds too much? I don't know. I'd be open to having just a clean 20 rounds, maybe, or 21 rounds with the bye, I guess you could say. But I don't know. I feel like 23 rounds is actually pretty solid. It'd be nice to have it line up with the calendar every year as much as possible. And by
Mhm.
line up the calendar, I mean, finals always starts in September, never like August,
Mhm.
29th or 30th or what have you. Final always starts. Because think about it again, we talk about the American perspective. Think about it from the American perspective. March Madness is basically March, half April Madness at this point because
Mhm.
the conference tournaments basically drag into like the first and second weeks of March, right? So it's like, well, why are we still calling it March Madness when, the national title game is going to be right before tax day, right?
Mhm.
April 11th, something like that. So I think to a degree, like, we always talk and joke about like the hardcore footy traditionalists who want zero change ever at all. But like, I think there is something to it when, there's a reason September is synonymous with finals footy in the AFL, right? So
Mhm.
I think having September and September alone as the first few rounds, your prelims, your elimination finals, your qualifying finals, all of that, and then of course culminating with the granting in the last week of September.
Hmm.
So yeah, I think there's wisdom in that. There's merit in it. But in terms of widening or narrowing the schedule, I'm open to ideas. I think it's good for now. But again, like it's I don't really have a dog in this fight. Again, it's more about like how the players and the coaches how it affects their day to day
Yeah.
operations, really. Because it's just because you have a bye doesn't mean just like in the NFL, you might have a Thursday night game the week after, or you might have
Hmm.
a Friday night game the week before. You might have 10 days off. You might have 6 days off. So it all depends. And as we know, with players who are in concussion protocol, those extra days make all the difference in the world.
Hmm.
I think I'm open to ideas, but in terms of, will the AFL do the right thing for the game, for all parties involved? It's hard to say because, like, you hear all these different things. And I think sticking with 23 rounds is good. When Tassie enters the competition in a few years, I'm sure they'll revisit it. And I'm sure we'll have a nice, fresh round of debates about how long the
Well,
season
I
should
think
or
with the odd numbers when Tazzy comes in, it's all basically going to be moot in the first place because everybody's going to have at
possibly.
least one bye week through the first 18 rounds anyways, because there's always with 19 teams, there's always going to be one odd. So somebody's going
It'll
to
be
get a
like
bye
the
week every week.
yeah, it'll be like the 2011 season when
Yep.
Gold Coast entered, but GWS was still a year away.
Yep.
So yeah, it could get very strange.
Yeah. No. But
But again, that's going to be a natural timeline to
yeah, no, I agree. I
reevaluate.
agree. No, I'm interested in it, and I may even put this out on my socials just because for me, what I would love to do, and again, I don't think they're going to do this because the broadcasters want as many games as they possibly can. I would, I've always said I think the season should only be 18. I think the season should only be 18 rounds. I don't think they should have buys at all. I think they should actually shorten the season. And I think they should take a week off in the middle of the year and have a trade period because I've brought this up a couple of times and it's also kind of prevalent this year too. You look at Essendon. They have Goldstein who's
Mm-hmm.
closer to the end than anything.
True.
How awesome would it be for Essendon to be able to trade their first round pick next year to bring in an Ivan Soldo or to bring in
Maybe.
a Sean Darcy this year
Mm.
to be able to make a run for the finals because you have a trade deadline to where you could move and I know it's they're like why are you Americanizing our sport? I'm not Americanizing. I'm just bringing in a way to fix a problem that I have seen in prior years where you get these lists that are injured but they're still winning but
Yeah.
they're running short on guys. So let them be able to trade a pick from this year, a second or a third round, or even a first round if they feel that they're that important, to
Right.
trade that away to be able to have a crack at going for the finals or have a crack at going for a premiership this year because it can also not only give you intrigue of that team now going for a championship, but can fast track a team that trades it away,
Yeah.
aka a Port Adelaide if they trade Ivan Soldo, that they can pick up a youngster the next season to fast track a rebuild. So
Mm.
like, there's different options to just I'm just trying to think outside the box here again. It's
Right.
never going to happen because again, my and this is a little bit this is so pie in the sky. This is utopia here, okay?
Sure.
And I've said this numerous times. I think what they should really do is the women's and the men's competition should both be 18 rounds. Okay. You play the other 17 teams once and you play your rivals twice. That's it. There's no other doubles. Okay.
Mm.
18 games, so you get an even amount. And now with Tazzy coming in, then you get to play everybody once, or then you play 20 rounds, okay? Or
Right. Right.
18, whatever. You get everybody once, okay? You don't need any other doubles besides maybe your rivals because then you get two showdowns, then you get two Sydney derbies, you get two Q clashes, you get two Carlton versus
Right.
Sydney, Carlton versus Collingwood, you get two Hawthorn versus Geelong, and so on and so forth. You get the rivalries that everybody talks about in this competition twice, and everybody else you get once. You shorten the season so the players are happy because there's less wear and tear on their bodies. You get the finals out of the way a little bit earlier for the men, so then the women get free air for some time and they get 18 rounds. It's the same amount since they'll have both the men and the women with the same amount of teams, the same amount of games, same finals format. And I think it would work because if you take a 24 round, you cut 8 rounds off of it, make it down to 18. That gives the rounds there to the women who are only playing 11 rounds. Now they get those 8 weeks that the men no longer need. Boom,
Hmm.
there's your 17, 18 rounds for the women. Bang, there you go. You get footy for almost the same amount of time, and the players have less wear and tear on their bodies. I think you actually get better footy. You get better footy, and you give a competition that needs free air because I will fight with anybody on this. The AFLW cannot play double headers with the men. It will only ruin the women's competition because the women and the men are two different games. They have two different fan bases. You cannot force fans to go to both because they're two different fan bases. And until the AFL gets that through their thick skulls, that it is two different fan bases, it is not that simple. I hear so many people play double headers. How many people do you see sitting one to watch the VFL and then the AFL match one after
Sure.
another? Never. I literally watched a game one time where the Sydney Swans AFL side was a curtain raiser for the VFL. The VFL game I later watched on TV, I later watched online. A
Yeah.
tenth of the people that were there for the Swans match stayed. Everybody
Hmm.
else buggered off.
Yeah.
Don't tell
I
me
get it.
people want to stay and watch footy. I don't think so. Not with a 3.5 hour AFL match and then a 2.5 hour women's or VFL match. Don't lie to me. That's not the way it's going to work. People don't have the attention spans to sit there for 5 hours. It's not going to happen. Don't do double headers. Okay. So, for me personally, like I said, rewind it back a little bit. Like I said,
Sure.
it's a utopian thing.
Yeah.
I've went on this rant many times. I apologize to people that have listened to this before.
Right.
I really think the men's competition could be succinct a little bit more. They're not going to because the AFL, the broadcasters want as many games as they possibly can. So that's it's never going to change. They're either going to add games or they're going to find a way to maneuver the games around to the point where they're still basically getting the same amount of games. Like, and that's the thing that I have resigned to. Okay, I get that. But for me, the buy rounds, I don't mind them. I just think they could
Yeah.
succinct them a little bit and save ourselves a couple of extra rounds. Like, get rid of them.
I don't know.
Like I said, give everybody 1 round off, or just do two 9 round, do two like 110 and 1-8. So you only have 4 games one week, you have 5 games the next week, then we're right back into everybody playing again. That's
Mm.
what I would do personally. But again, like I said, I'll never
Right.
know how that goes. So
Yeah.
I want to have some fun because I know on a few of the footy shows, I'm already seeing people going, well, the eight is now down to these amount of teams. So I'm going to do
Yeah.
it.
That's true.
I know we're only for the most part, except for Essendon and Gold Coast, everybody's played 11 games and we've got quite the fun little ladder from basically from
Yeah.
fourth all the way down to 15th. We have 2 game gap. Okay.
Yeah.
Right now,
There's,
sir. Right now,
yeah.
sir, is where do we cut the line of teams that can make the finals and teams that we can pretty much put a line through because finals ain't happening.
Yeah. It's been such a weird year. I've talked to a lot of footy friends about this as well. Like the middle of the competition, maybe like, 6th to 15th on the ladder, is pretty mediocre this year, if we're being honest. So in terms of who's on, you said 4th to 15th. Right now, as we look at the ladder now, we've got Adelaide, Geelong, Hawthorn,
Essendon
Doggies,
Bulldogs.
Giants, Dockers, Bombers, D's, Blues, Swans, Saints, Power. That's 4th through 15th. I'd say the only ones you can really put a line through are Essendon, not making finals this year. Sorry, I think they're going to finish 12th or 13th on the ladder at this rate. They're 10th as we speak. So no to the Dons. Melbourne, with the way they've been traveling, Fremantle, with the way they've been traveling, both of Melbourne's percentage is awful, but Fremantle's is really good. So I'd say they're both still alive. Carlton, if they don't go on a tear and they need to win like 5 of their next 6 to be anywhere within shouting distance of finals. I'd say right now, put a line through them. Swans, put a line through them. Saints, definitely, and Port. Port has a good enough list where they can surprise you
But
occasionally,
their
but
percentage is
like you
79.1.
and like you said, it's the issue with Port, and we could kind of see this coming. Kind of, who are they playing for? Are they playing for Hinkley or are they playing for Carr? And until they get that psychological question figured out, they're going to be, stuck in an awkward place because again, that's a very talented list. Again, I love what Georgiadis has been doing. We know what Butters, Rosie, Rioli, Powell Pepper, the usual suspects at Port. We know what this list can do, but yeah, they're not making finals this year. They'll probably, best case scenario, I'd say they'll finish 10th. Worst case scenario, they could even be bottom four at this rate. They're dangerously, well, yeah, they're at the edge of it right now, 15th.
Mm-hmm.
So yeah, and then of course Richmond, Northwest Coast, they were never going to be making finals regardless. But yeah, I think Fremantle and Melbourne have the best chances of making a run. And given, if a team like maybe Hawthorn, who've been kind of patchy form as of late, if they keep tumbling down the ladder, then you reckon that Frio and the D's could maybe take advantage of that. But what are your thoughts?
I'm looking at it like this is Essendon's tied. The biggest thing that's killing them is their percentage, and with their injury issues, they're the only one in the point range now that I'm kind of with you. Like I'm not sure if they make finals. Who knows? Who knows? But like if I'm just purely going off of the way this ladder is going, honestly, I think we cut it. I think the cutoff line is 12th. I think Carlton is the only team 2 games back that I think if they can click, they can get there. My problem is they have not shown me enough to tell me that's going to happen.
Right.
Really, I think 11th is right now where I would put the line that I'm confident are still in the running for finals. So Melbourne, Essendon, Fremantle, who are out, could still make finals. Carlton would be the only team at 16. Unfortunately, I think the Swans' injury issues, I think they're going to be enough of a hole unless they go on a mighty run after the bye, which is possible. But
Right.
they're going to need a mighty run after the bye, and that's not going to be easy with the hole they're already in. St. Kilda, damn it, they cannot. They're just not consistent. St. Kilda and Port Adelaide are
Yeah.
both the same thing. They're too damn inconsistent for me to feel any kind of confidence. I I'll give Carlton. I'll give Carlton the only team at 16 because of their percentage 102.8. A couple of wins and they're right
Yeah.
back in it. But their
Right.
biggest
Yeah.
issue is their fourth quarter fades, and I just don't know if you're going to make finals if you can't win it in the fourth quarter. So I'm with you on this. I'm more leaning towards Melbourne, Essendon, Fremantle. So the cutoff is anything after
Sure.
12th. I think their finals is very difficult. Again, we're through 11 rounds. There's still 13 rounds to go. There's still plenty
Yeah.
of footy.
Plenty of footy.
But most people say 15 wins is what you're going to need. And I'm looking at the records right now. That basically means Carlton and Sydney would have to win 11 games of their last 13, meaning they have to go 11-2. That's
Oh, I don't
not
see
easy.
them doing.
I
I don't.
don't see. I don't think 15. See, and then the other thing is, I don't think 15 is gonna. I don't think 15 is gonna be the cutoff line. I think it's gonna be more like 13, maybe
Yeah, I
12.
mean, given the way the season's been going, you never know.
I mean,
Um,
I think the top 3 team. I think the top 3 of the top 4 spots are locked. I think Collingwood, Brisbane, and Gold Coast are going to be your top 3 unless Gold Coast has a miraculous falling apart. I don't think so.
Gold Coast is definitely making finals. I'm not 100% sure they're
On
top
top
four,
four. Yeah, I'm the
but they
same way.
look like it.
I'm this top
Right.
way. I like the Crows. I honestly I like the Crows. They really play really well at home. And they don't have to worry about a lot of primetime games. They kind of the fixture kind of gave them this oddball thing where it's like a little bit of the pressure's off because they're not always in prime time. I mean,
Yeah.
the cats are right there.
Are
I think Cats, Crows, and Suns are going to be fighting for the last 2 spots.
spot on.
Hawthorn's the team that's in that I'm a tiny bit worried about. because
Agreed.
they
And
have
I think
really kind of fallen back, and the doggies are coming with a wet sail. I think the Giants, once they kind of get themselves healthy, there's a few too many injuries in their engine room that when they're back, I
sure.
think they're going to come with a wet sail. And with Will Day pretty much done till around 18 or 19 at the earliest that he's going to get
Yeah.
back, I think that's going to be hard.
Well, and
Fremantle,
also I think for sorry to cut you off there, but I think you're on the right track there. I think the Bulldogs and Geelong, out of 5 through 8, those are the best chances of busting into the top four.
yep.
If the Suns or the Crows stumble a little bit, which they could, but they could very well hold on to those two spots as well. But
Those two teams are one of those. If they can hold serve at
yeah,
home and steal a few on the road, they can get into top four. I'm
I think,
100% with you. And again, Trelaw and Darcy still to come back for the doggies. They're
and
they're they're one of the scarier teams. And then with the Hawks falling back, I honestly, right now, if you twist my arm, made me force, I think the Hawks fall to eighth. I don't know if
yeah,
Fremantle, Essendon, or Melbourne have enough. I think Melbourne put themselves in too big a hole. I'm not sure if they're going to get enough to get. I mean, if they get in, they're going to like scrape in and get into eighth.
sure,
Like that's how I kind of feel. Like if they get in, they're going to get in eighth, and that's about their ceiling.
possible,
I just
yeah,
don't see it going any further than that. You could see the Hawks fall out. Like I said, it depends. I
maybe.
don't know how Mitchell's going to handle because he just right now, Will Day has just been a hole that they have not been able to
Well, and
fill.
also his absence being significant as well. I mean, the doggies, of course, they had the Jamar Ugle-Hagan headache to deal with earlier in the season, but let's not forget, I can't remember who posted the article, but I saw something that was saying Cody Waitman had a setback in his rehab, and he
Yeah,
might
he's
not.
he's done for the year. He's done
He's
for
done
the
for the
year.
year. Really?
Yeah.
There's no chance he could maybe come back for a finals run.
He would it would be like early in the finals,
Yeah,
and they wouldn't give him much rehab time to be able. So they pretty much shut him down because he's got a very rare medical condition where he's got a bone in his knee that's grown to the point where it's causing more issues. So that's why they had to go. I think they had to go back in,
yeah. I
which
think
which really sucks. But the thing is again the Trelaw Jones being out of form has actually some of these the lack of Trelaw, the lack of Darcy, the lack of Waitman has actually let guys like Oscar Baker. You're seeing the jump of Frazier, Davidson, the kid who was in medical school and is taking some time away from medical school to play.
yeah.
Bevo keeps finding these hidden gems that right now he is looking like an absolute genius when it comes to his coaching. And the doggies look absolutely magnificent. And like I said, they've still got two big weapons in Trelaw and Darcy still to join this group. Liam Jones could find some form and come into an already pretty good defensive line. Surprisingly, Rory Lobb has found another, just is a little bit like Zorko. He's found a renaissance in his career in the back line of the Western Bulldogs.
Well, and also,
So
I mean, I felt like everyone assumed they would maybe fall off a little bit in the back line because they lost Caleb Daniel to North, and he is
I don't you see
such a
you
good
see
part of
honestly he's a defensive addition but a subtraction offensively because Daniel is pretty much a ball when he has the ball he's dangerous when he doesn't have the ball he's a little bit of a liability defensively and it's not just because of a lack of stature. Okay, I'm not making a short joke here. Okay, don't don't
right,
don't don't get it twisted, people that are listening. It is plain and simply because Caleb Daniel is getting up. He's not a spring chicken anymore. He could not defend, but his best position was off at halfback because of his kicking ability. And the doggies just he wasn't fitting because they had Bailey Dale, they had Joe,
he's
Jason
having an
Johannesson.
incredible season.
So
Yeah,
like that's the issue that they run into is his best position was being filled by guys that are just a little bit better defensively and just a little bit more impactful at the time by foot and with footy in hand. That's why Caleb Daniel became a expendable player. He's went to North. He's done what he did at the Western Bulldogs. Problem is, he again, whether he's only an offensive impactful player. Defensively, honestly, I don't know if he's the greatest defender in the world. I'm not going to sit here and question his defense because,
right.
again, most of the time when you see Caleb Daniel, he has footy in hand and he can be very damaging with footy in
He's
hand. But
he's kind of that
defensively,
he's kind of that niche guy that you
yeah,
have on a rebound 50 or when you're doing a kick in from a behind. He's
yeah,
going to be that first or second link in the chain that's going to kind of
he's
spear the
that
ball forward into the
yeah,
wing. Yeah.
he's that offensive halfback that's become just so in vogue in the AFL nowadays. I mean,
Oh,
you have your
definitely.
Nick Blakey's, your Nasai
You see
Wanganeen
Dodger
Milleras,
at Carlton.
Your Dane Zorko, your Dane Zorkos, your uh before Dawson moved into the midfield, that's what Dawson was doing for the Adelaide Crows a little bit. That's what Rory Laird's now doing for the Adelaide Crows a little
And
bit.
Andy McGrath has done a little bit of it
Yeah,
for.
McGrath has done that. You're seeing Guthrie for the Cats, Lockie Whitfield and Lockie Ash for the GWS Giants. I mean, there is a halfback, Noble and Rioli for the Gold Coast
Oh,
Suns. It's
I love
become
what
the in
Noble.
vogue position is that great ball moving, the great kicking, ball moving halfback flanker. And it's become that position that you kind of need to fill in the present day, stand the mark AFL that we've come to kind of know and love. So
Well, you just
it's
mentioned
really fun.
you mentioned John Noble. He's another guy who has really had a great career renaissance. He had some good years at Collingwood. Was part of the flag team, and moves up to the Gold
Yep,
Coast, and he had what, like 30 touches during one of the games in Darwin. He's had
yep,
excellent. I
yeah.
think
Him and Rioli were the perfect pickups for Gold Coast because
well,
they
we already
brought in
knew Dimma's system already, and
yep,
Noble. Everyone forgets he's David Noble's kid. He's
yep.
coach's son who's got a great footy IQ and has an excellent kick on him.
Yep.
So
And he, like I said, he's that in vogue position. Those, honestly, I think the Gold Coast's ascendancy this year, I think is not just because of the young talent. It's not just because of Anderson and Miller and Jed Walter and King and all.
and they've locked in
It
somebody.
really has been, I think Noble and Rioli have been the reason they've spent because they didn't have that last year. Sammy Flanders went back there, but he didn't make an offensive impact. He was a high possession guy, but he wasn't making impact. Noble and
Right.
Rioli are. Noble is
They
getting it
are.
to the forwards, and Rioli's kicking goals off the halfback flanker, which is gold in present day footy nowadays. So,
Yeah. And
honestly,
they
I
have.
think those two were the reason. Those two really are I think the reason that the Suns are as successful as they are, not just because of Anderson, Rao, Witz, and the
Right.
elite talent that they have. It's they have those Swiss Army knife tools coming out of the halfback line that really opens up their
Mhm.
game in Noble
And
and Rioli.
they've even got some better depth there too. Like
Yep.
Jet Walter, he's been playing more center half forward this season.
And Joel
I
Jeffrey
love
has found
Jeffrey.
himself there
Jeffrey's
too.
great. Jeffrey's great, and I reckon we'll be seeing some more of him because Mac Andrew, I believe he hurt his ankle. He
Yep.
might be in doubt for the Gold Coast next game, which is going to be against Fria, which should
Yep.
be a very entertaining match.
Yeah, that should
Speaking,
be an
we
interesting
should
one.
should we get into the tips for round 12? Speaking of
Well,
which,
let's you have I my last burning question is always as the Giants fan that you are, I got a question for you. As the Giants fan that you are, can this win really settled your team? Because yes, you got that win over the Cats, which I think a lot of people were kind of chuckling at the fact you've went down there 5 times and have stolen 5 wins out of there, which most people don't do. But you've had your struggles. You've lost some games you probably shouldn't have. I think the Fremantle loss was a little shocking. Do you think this settles your boys to the point where now you can make that run for finals, or are you still a little leery because again, no Canelio, Callahan's still out for a while. You've still got a few walking wounded still in the Giants camp.
yeah, I'm a little worried about depth. You're right in terms of the Geelong win. It's always a big deal winning in Geelong. You can't take that for granted, even though, yes, the Giants really do seem to have their number at Cardinia Park. You're right in terms of the injuries are to key guys at key roles, but and I think they do miss guys like Nick Haynes or
Mhm.
Perryman, other guys who left in free agency who can kind of be toast.
Cunningham and Pete
Yeah,
Cummings and Pete Ling. That's I think
yeah,
the Crows have really the Crows benefited this year from getting some depth guys at GWS. I think their depth got hurt. I don't think talent
yeah,
wise they decreased. I just think the depth that they were able to take a few injuries last year and it wasn't bringing them down. This year
yeah.
you're starting to see it exposed a little bit more because no Peatley, no Isaac coming. You've got a couple of guys that could go. They could go through the midfield. They could go off
Yeah.
the half back. They could go through the wing, and it
It's
kind of gave
it's
you
different.
depth. They don't have that this year. So
It's different.
yeah,
Again, Thomas, I mentioned Harvey Thomas, Darcy Jones, some other
Yeah.
young kids who are going to have to play some more minutes.
Hmm.
Cadman, I mean, he was a top five pick. He's got all the talent in the world. Haven't seen as much consistency from him as I'd like, although he did have some
Young
good
forward,
arm.
young forward. They take a little bit longer.
Yeah,
So,
he did have some good contested marks on the weekend that I
hmm.
like. I think this can definitely be a springboard for a good run, regardless of the injuries. Because again, last year we were in a similar position. We're on the wrong side of 500 at after 6 or 7 rounds, but we righted the ship and kind of went on a little run, and that put us in good stead percentage wise heading into the
Hmm.
back half of the year. The margin for error is definitely slimmer. Again, like where the Giants are right at eighth on the ladder. Hawthorn, Doggies, Dockers, they're all in that mix. Yes, the loss to the Dockers wasn't good a few weeks ago, but they've had some solid form since. So that loss doesn't look as bad in hindsight. Obviously, losing to the Swans does, but we've got the Swans, two Sydney derbies per year, as we both know. So I
Hmm.
think there's definitely some opportunities. You're looking up next. We've got a struggling Port Adelaide side coming up next. Oh, or not Port Adelaide, Richmond,
Richmond
and
this week. Yep.
but we do have Port coming up soon, I believe, and then yeah, I think let's see who we have coming up.
Yeah, because you have Port
Let's
next
say
week
Richmond
in
and Port.
round 13. I
Richmond and
believe
Port.
it's either round 14 or 15. Near round 14, you get Brizzy up at the
Yeah,
GABA. So that's not
that's
an
gonna be
easy
tough.
one. And an
That's gonna be
afternoon game up at Queensland, even more fun. Yay. And
yep.
then I
And
believe
then
round 15 will be your bye. So
round 16 will be the bye. Round 15 we've got
oh yeah,
gold.
15 you've got Gold Coast. Yep. So
So
you
yeah,
get to
that's
play both Queensland teams in 2 weeks.
and that'll definitely be a an exciting new challenge, and that's
Yep.
not dark at them. Like, I mean, this is the first season where like both Queensland teams have really been good simultaneously. So I think obviously that's good for the growth of the sport up there. But yeah, the Giants are definitely going to have to you know either win both or split one to really stay
Yep.
on track. But having Richmond, having Port, like given the current shape that both those teams are in, you'd like to think that's an ideal spot. Maybe you can get one or two guys back. Hopefully Kelly can be back by the time we play Brisbane or Gold Coast. It's like there's again the margin for error is much slimmer, but I think there's a good sense of belief around the club. Kingsley is definitely seems to understand where we're at. And again, the silver lining there is like again having a VFL side that's either top of the ladder or close to because the Giants have been in really good form the VFL for the most part. And again, having guys like Lecalier who can make the jump up and put their hand up and acquit themselves pretty well. Again,
Mhm.
I can't you can't take anything for granted. It's been a topsy turvy season, but I think the having the last two wins be really meaningful wins over
Mhm.
Geelong and Carlton, both of whom think that they're finals material. They have finals worthy lists. Is Carlton going to make finals? Probably not. But
Mhm.
I definitely think those were definitely two big wins that are going to help us kind of just attack things that much harder,
Yep.
right?
No, just for my sake, just because I do cover the VFL, the Giants are third on the ladder in the VFL. There
That's
behind Box Hill, who's got the top, and then Southport, Queensland unattached club is in second. But you're only one game back from Box Hill, and have been playing really well in the VFL. So not
that's good.
not to contradict you, but I just wanted to be just wanted I had to double check it because
Yeah,
I was like
I was
I
gonna say
because
they
I'm
were
actually
top
got
of the
my
ladder a
VFL.
couple of weeks ago.
Yeah,
So
I got my VFL show coming up here pretty soon, so I was cramming. I was
uh,
going in and doing my research for that to get ready for that one, and I was like I thought Box Hill was at the top, so I had to look. So
right,
no, I'm 100% with you. The thing I look at it though is it stinks not having Callahan back. You're probably not going to get him back until after the bye. Just
yeah,
timetable wise, I think if the Giants are smart, they 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 roll through it. You use the bye round as that nice kind of perfect setup. You have him back after the bye. I think that'll be fine. I'm not sure where Cornelio is. I'd have to look at the injury list on that, and
yeah,
how that's going. But again, I agree with you. You have to get these next two going into those two, and then if you could split. The two games between Gold Coast and Brisbane, you're going to be happy. Go 3-1 of these next four, and I think the
Yeah,
Giants will
winning at
win.
the Gabba will be
Yeah.
really tough. That's definitely the one that is probably going to be the most challenging,
Yep.
and Gold Coast at home, just because the
Yep.
Suns.
At
They've
NG Stadium is nice, and you play
yeah,
NG Stadium really well. So I think that there's,
that's right.
like I said, you can go. If you can get three, I don't. Even if you go 2-2, it's still not too bad going into the bye round for sure. So
Sure.
that's it for the burning questions. We've got a couple more things before the tip because remember we have team of the week and power rankings. I'll go through those real quick and have some fun
Okay.
with that. Like I said, I take over the podcast just the tiniest bit, and then we'll go to tips because again, we're still early in the week, and last week it bit me, but we will definitely tip for sure. So we'll start off team of the week, starting on the defense. We have Melbourne's Christian Salem, Fremantle's Alex Pierce. He kicks a goal, so I'm going to give him a little bit of plaudits here. And Nick Blakey of the Sydney Swans. On the halfback line, we see Josh Weddle of the Hawthorn Hawks. St. Kilda's Nasiah Wanganeen Miller. If he does not
Good
get an All
choice.
Australian jumper, I will be pissed because he's been fantastic this year. Nick
Love
Martin
that.
of the Essendon Bombers. Whoops, wrong one. Joel Jeffrey of the Gold Coast Suns. I had my wings. I was going through here too fast. On the wings, we have Matt Kennedy of the Western Bulldogs and Nick Martin of the Essendon Bombers. Through the center in the ruck, Big Max gone. Gotta give Gawney a tip of the cap there. He was fantastic against Brody Grundy in that game. Adelaide's Jordan Dawson, Western Bulldogs Ed Richards, and Sydney's Isaac Heaney are the center midfield. On the forward line, we have Jeremy Cameron, half forward line, Jeremy Cameron of the Geelong Cats, Adelaide's Josh Rochelle, and Melbourne's Keziah Pickett on the half forward line. On the full forward line, we have Shannon Neal of the Geelong Cats, Brisbane's Cal Chi, and Collingwood's Jamie Noble round out the starters. On the bench, defender Miles Bergman of the Port Adelaide Power. The ruck is Fremantle's Luke Jackson. The midfielder is Timmy Taranto of the Richmond Tigers. And the forward is Murphy Reed of the Fremantle Dockers. I know that's a lot of names really quickly. Thoughts on the team of the round?
Yeah, I like a lot of those. Wangini Millerod, you're absolutely right. He's been, one of the few bright spots for the Saints this year. And Jack Higgins, he's a guy who hasn't really kicked that accurately the last few years, but he's having a hell of a season. I think
He
he's
was in the Col. He's a small
third or
forward and he's in the
third or
Coleman
fourth.
talks. Yeah,
He's third or fourth
he's
in the
been
Colts. He had
fantastic.
Yeah, no, to be amongst the likes of Jezza Cameron, Jesse Hogan, take a
Yep,
bow, Higo. That's a big positive for St. Kilda's future if
yep,
they can turn it around.
yep,
I really
100%.
like you said, you who did you have? Weddle from Hawthorn. I
Yeah.
really like what I've seen from him.
He's
So,
fantastic off the halfback line for them. He's
oh
he's
yeah,
super athletic, but he could go through the middle if he wants. He's one of those utility knives
yeah,
for Mitchell that I think Mitchell has really been using a lot. Sicily's kind of had some bouncing back and forth a little bit. He's went forward, so he's been on the
right,
fullback line a couple of times. But I love Josh Weddle. I love his game. Seeing CJ Jath come back, I think has opened up Weddle's game as well
yeah,
because CJ's really good defensively. Well, CJ hasn't had the games where he gets a ton of disposals. I still think that's coming,
right.
which I cannot wait because CJ is electric with footy in hand. Cannot wait. But yeah,
Yeah,
Josh Weddle is one of my favorites, and Joel Jeffrey kind of stole the show from his normal two standout halfback friends in Noble and Rioli this week.
Yeah, I again like with Mac Andrews' injury, Jeffrey becomes all the more important, and he's got an excellent leg. His dad Russell played some good footy back in his day as well. I don't know if you knew that, but he's definitely someone. Again, you think about the Darwin connection that Suns have. He's a Territorian. He's a guy who played some really good footy as a junior, and found his way to the Suns. And I think he would start off as a forward, had a few games where he kicked a nice bag, but Hardwick was like, hey, we can really use that big wingspan of yours in the half-back line. And I think he's a guy who's really come on the last several years. And you're right, having Rioli and Noble just helps him all the more because
Yep,
they draw all that much more attention from opposition. And then Jeffrey can do his thing and go back and get a big intercept mark. So I think
100%.
yeah, I think he's really come along. Who else did you have in the midfield? Again,
On the wings, Matt Kennedy and Nick Martin. Nick Martin again has been
Kennedy has
fantastic.
been. I like Kennedy just because Carlton was dumb enough to just let him walk. I
I've
mean,
seen a few articles about that. It's like Carlton's
oh
got to be kicking themselves, but again, it's also one of those situations. If you look at it, I mean, you've had the reemergence of George Hewitt in the Carlton midfield. Sammy
sure,
Walsh is there. Crippa's there. You've there. It's a stacked midfield for Carlton. So I kind of, but the funny thing is, he goes to almost just as stacked, if not a more stacked midfield at the Western Bulldogs, and is
absolutely.
thriving. I mean, Eddie Richards is probably having one of the best seasons of his career. Bond's come back from injury and looked
Well, I
absolutely,
think weirdly enough,
yeah,
Bond getting hurt early allowed Kennedy to kind of rise
yeah,
to the
I agree.
occasion. Yeah,
Yeah,
funny how.
Bailey, Dale, Ed Richard. I mean, right now the doggies. I mean, I think they've got like six of the top 50 disposal people in the entire AFL this year. It is ridiculous what the dogs are doing. So they're going to be fun to
Oh
watch.
yeah,
And the center, Jordan Dawson, has been fantastic. Again, he's still one of those that, if you
sure.
ask most Swans fans, he's one of those that really angered us that he got away. I get it. He had some family members that he wanted to
South
be that he
Australian boy.
wanted to be
Yeah.
closer with, his South Australian. So I get it. I'm happy for him. I think he's done magnificent for them. Ed Richards, again, the red haired demon. He looks fantastic for the doggies this year. Has been incredible. Isaac Heaney's found kind of the form that he had last year. I still need Chad Warner to step up that way, but Heaney was probably one of the few bright spots besides
Yeah.
Brody Grundy. I think him and Gon had a heavyweight battle. That was so much fun to watch. And Gon
Yeah.
was just gone. I mean, he was incredible. The goal that he had on Brody Grundy got a little bit of a running head start, got
Mm.
just under the armpits of Grundy to get Grundy off balance, and then had the snap. It was perfect. So yeah,
Oh yeah.
this
That
was a
was
fun
great.
one. Keziah Pickett, as much as I absolutely hated getting torched by him, God, was it fun to watch him play.
It had been a while since he
Oh my gosh.
it had been a while since he had a 5 goal performance, wasn't it? But I
Yeah.
mean, he really is very much like Cyril Rioli in terms of just being so efficient. Literally, anytime he touches the footy, he can score. And I
Yeah.
think he's again like
He could have had 10 in this game. He was inaccurate as all get out. And he
yeah,
had a barrel
and
that
I think
didn't even score. But I was like,
the best one, and oh, I'm afraid this one is gonna get ripped to shreds by Dean Cox in the film room. But the one where Pickett just, he can go off the mark and kick a snap goal or
yeah.
from the side, and he did that. And whichever Swan player,
Matty Roberts
was just
was trying to get the he was trying to get the mark set up, and Kazi's
oh,
so smart. As
Kazi
soon as
knew
the umpire started to explain it to him, Kazi took 3 steps to his right and snapped it. I mean,
it was beautiful.
that is the brilliance of Kazi Pickett, and that is it's one of those. I'm almost not mad at Matty Roberts because he's doing what he's supposed to do. He wants to make sure he's on the mark
Sure,
so he doesn't give the 50-meter penalty. And Kazi's just smart. He sees
he
that he's
is.
going to ask that question and he capitalizes it. As much as I agree with you, I think Dean Cox probably absolutely tears Matty Roberts a new you know what. I'm almost kind of more impressed that Kazi's that footy smart that he knows that
Yeah,
he could play on because he has the mark. The guy's got to stand there. The defense is still retreating back because it's a mark in the pocket. So it's almost the perfect play. Now, if
yeah.
Kazi kicks a behind, he looks like an absolute
Oh, of
mule.
course.
But the fact that he buries it dead center, it makes it even kind of like I said, I had to chuckle at that one a little bit, even as a Swans fan. It's like that's just smart. That's just smart by Kazi Pickett. He did exactly what he's supposed to do.
Mm,
He used the situation to a T perfectly to do what he needed to do. So, like I said,
right.
I'm not even mad at Matty Roberts. I know some people will be, but I mean that's just smart play by Kazi
Yeah.
Pickett. So we'll go to
I
the
think
power. We'll go to can I go to the we'll go to the power ranking.
yes,
We got tipping still to do.
that's all right.
We could go forever. I know, ladies, and this is just what Rick and I do. I absolutely, like I said, we could sit down and talk for hours. I could do a
Let's keep it
podcast
moving.
of 3 hours just talking this type of stuff here. So we'll get to the power ranking. Like I said, my homage to the fourth and long part of the podcast. We start at 5. The Adelaide Crows are at 5. At 4, the Brisbane Lions. At 3, the Melbourne Demons. At 2, the Gold Coast Suns. And at 1, top of the table, Collingwood Magpies. I got to give Fly McRae this. He has managed this aged, mature roster perfectly. He is pulling out his best Chris Scott imitation because he is resting these guys at perfect times, and he's still getting wins.
He is. I really do think Fly is one of the best coaches, if not the best, in AFL at the moment. I think they can just hurt you in so many ways. Like, I mean, my check kicked 2 goals, three. Didn't matter, because Jamie Elliott is there to kick 5 goals straight. And
Yep.
like side bottom and Pendles are out. Doesn't matter because both Daycoff brothers have 30 plus touches as usual. It's just they can hurt you in so many ways. And they just play so well as a unit. Like the chemistry. Remember when Jack Crisp missed the goal after the siren during his milestone game? Every single player came up immediately before even shaking hands with any of the opposition, immediately just giving him a pat on the back because he broke a significant milestone. We all know that the consecutive games started that he beat the late Jim Steins, rest in peace. But Crisp he's the epitome of a club man at the Pies. He's had such a great time with them. And again, they're just always locked in. They don't make dumb mistakes with the footy. It's just, you can't stop all of them. And they can just hurt you in so many ways. So that's what makes the Pies right now the class of the competition. So
Yep. I mean, it is hard to argue that each line has a strength that very few teams have. I mean, no Darcy Moore, no Braden Maynard, yet their defense is still absolutely rock solid. Isaac Quaynor is still one of my favorites. I love him as a small defender. Their halfback line. I don't think Dan Houston has stepped in and been super impressive, but he's done what he's needed to do. I mean, the fact Steele Sidebottom didn't play in this game, he's still probably one of the best wingers in the competition this year. And he is, like I said, one of the most experienced players in the entire. Josh Dacos has found his another little niche in the halfback flanker position. I think he's played so good. Nick Dacos, again, I swear you can put him anywhere on the ground and he finds a way to make an impact. I mean, Jamie Elliott, um, oh my gosh, Maya
again,
Check,
it's like,
their
who do you
forward
have?
line is not daunting. It's just relentless. Bobby Hill is absolutely like,
Yeah,
what poison chalice do you want to take? Because that's what they kind of put you in. No, Lockie Schultz is still to come back, but he just adds another degree of difficulty. Bo McCreary again is got speed to
Austin
burn
Elliott.
for days.
Yeah,
Just, I mean, it is a Collingwood Magpies team that when they're fit and firing, they have very few weaknesses, very few, and
yeah,
they're gonna be there. Them, Brisbane, Gold Coast, the Western Bulldogs. The finals are gonna be fun because anything can happen. But right now, it's hard not to say that the Pies are not one of the teams that you have to look at and go, there's a very good chance that they could be there on the last week of September playing for that big old cup. So let's jump to it, sir. Let's jump to tipping because I'm interested.
let's do it.
We have four teams having a seat on the couch. Carlton, North Port Adelaide, and the Western Bulldogs will kick up and be able to watch the footy. They can put their feet up on the couches, grab a beer, and enjoy some of these games. And we are going to be treated to a couple of really good games. I'm interested on this one. We jump up to the Gabba to start Thursday night footy as the Lions host the injury-riddled Dons. I worry about this, sir.
Mm.
Brisbane Bombers, who do you like?
I mean, yeah, no, logic definitely goes with Brisbane here. I definitely am tipping them. I'd say by, I don't know, 5 goals. I think it normally would be fewer, but like you said, Essendon is very banged up at the moment. The Gabba is a really hard place to play on the road. I reckon the Lions are gonna take a big one here, and since they're second on the ladder, get some percentage. So I
Yeah,
like the Lions here. In terms of storylines or trends or whatever you want to call it, again, you mentioned Dorco, guys like Rayner, Zach Bailey, who are playing, kind of unique roles outside the midfield. And, we know how good the Brisbane midfield is. And Charlie Cameron, I hope Charlie Cameron can continue, a run of good form. Because again, he had a quiet start to the season. He's not exactly like, oh, as Charlie goes, so goes the Lions. But you
mhm.
know how loud the Brisbane cricket ground or the Gabba gets when, they play Take Me Home Country Roads for his goal celebration. So I reckon the Lions are going to have some good vibes and get a good percentage boosting win.
this is one of those that technically all of their tall injuries aren't going to hurt them as much in this game because Brisbane's not exactly a skyscraper team. I mean, after Eric Hipwood, really they're all small to medium forwards. So
Well, the
I'm
big O too, McInerney.
yeah, but he's the ruckman. So I'm talking like just pure forward, not like
Sure.
ruck moving forward. Literally Logan Morris is really the tallest after Eric Hipwood. Logan Morris is and then the rest are small forwards. You have Reyna, Bailey, Cameron, Gardner's went forward. You've got Kai. I think I'm not sure if Kai Lohman is back from his injury. You have both the Ashcroft brothers. I mean, they're not skyscrapers. They're not super tall guys. So this is one time I don't think Essendon's going to get hurt as much being down some of their tall defenders. Mackay not
Sure.
being there does hurt. Reed being hurt. So I'm interested to see does Laverde play? Does he take Hipwood? Do they kind of zone off of Hipwood since Hipwood likes to sometimes move up the ground? I agree with you. I think Brisbane puts up a score on Essendon in this one. I like the fact that Big O gets Goldie in this one. That'll be a fun
Oh
ruck
yeah,
battle. The midfield, I'm interested to see does somebody go to Merritt and then does somebody go to Lockie Neal? And how does that go? How do the Ashcroft brothers handle it?
yeah,
And then I want to see does Coach Scott try to put somebody on Harris Andrew to kind of negate Harris Andrews' interceptability? That'll be the biggest thing there.
I mean,
I agree with you. I think the
I feel
Lions
like
win
you
this
have to
relatively
tag
easily.
somebody.
Yeah.
Yeah, I feel like you have to tag somebody on Brisbane. It might be Neil, it might be Andrews, it might even be one of the Ashcrofts.
Well,
But
with
I
with
think
Andrew, it's not even a tag. It's just more of a
sure, sure,
be make him defensively responsible for you
yeah,
and kind of make him question himself because if you kind of play him like if you play behind him to the point where he's constantly has to turn his head, he can't
yeah.
read the ball as well as he usually does. He's one of the best ball readers in the entire competition.
Yeah, you kind of just have to neutralize him.
Yeah,
And
you kind of have to you make him have to play you, not the footy, and I think that's a way to neutralize him. Whether Essendon does it or not, is it an eight caddy? Do you see an Isaac Kako try to be just a annoying little small forward to try to just draw his attention? We'll have to see. Again, I think this is a Brisbane percentage booster just because Essendon's got some injuries in some worst possible places. Brisbane is incredibly good at home. I think Brisbane win this one. I don't know. The Plumbers, Nick Martin sometimes can be a pain. Who kind of handles that matchup will be fun. Let's go down MCG, a fascinating one. This one annoys me because 6 weeks ago, this would have been marquee game of the round. Everybody's talking about it.
yeah,
This one has lost some luster over the last 3 weeks as Collingwood host the Hawks at the MCG. It's going to be rocking. I think the Pies win this one, and I'm fascinated because the Hawks need to find something because, like I said, they've
yeah,
been kind of wary since Will Diaz went down.
agreed. Yeah, no, I think again, the Hawks can't get too far ahead of themselves. Again, I know that they're a confident bunch. Mitchell, has a good game plan for them week in and week out usually. But yeah, the drop off in form has been noticeable. The day injury is only a part of it, but they're not an elite midfield yet. I don't think they are. And I don't think we can trust them against a real juggernaut side like the Pies. So I think Hawthorn can make it interesting for a few quarters, and I reckon that that they'll have some patches of play where they can put the clamps down on the Pies, pressure them more than they're used to, sort of try to get off to a hot start and make them uncomfortable. But the Pies are just too good. They're too well coached. They're too disciplined of a side, I think, to let this one go at the MCG. So I'm going to tip Collingwood, but by 3 goals. I think it'll be interesting, but they'll pull away in the fourth, like the Pies
Yep.
seem to do
Yep.
frequently.
Just have a little too much for the fourth quarter. Be
A little too
interesting.
much juice. A little too much juice.
Yeah, so fascinating one. People's first stadium as the Gold Coast Suns host the Dockers team is kind of starting to find their form, but unfortunately, an injury to Mac Andrew for the Gold Coast and Alex Pierce's suspension, which, like I said, unfortunately, I think holds. It'll
Mm-hmm.
be interesting. Both lose a key defensive player. I think Gold Coast survives their loss of Mac Andrew a lot more than Fremantle handled their loss. The midfield battle is going to be incredibly fun seeing Sarong, Brayshaw versus Anderson, Rowell, and Miller. I cannot wait for this. I think the Suns have a little too much firepower for this one, but the
Mhm.
Dockers, if they can get a lead and put some doubt into the Suns, it could be a fascinating one up at People's First.
Absolutely. I think this one might be the game of the round. Like you said, it could have been Pies Hawks, and in Melbourne it definitely is, given that a lot of those teams are on bye weeks. But yeah, Gold Coast Frio definitely looms large as a potentially explosive game. Gold Coast has a good record at home as usual. Of course, last year they couldn't win on the road, but this year they're doing both. And I think, like you said, you've got Andrew going down for the Suns, you've got Pierce suspension for the Dockers, two key losses in the back line. So kind of answering the question with the question, which forward line do you trust more? And right now, I trust the Suns more.
I agree.
I hope Ben King has a bounce back game. Again, he was pretty quiet on the weekend. The Suns kind of wavered a little bit. I mean, again, maybe playing down to their competition since St. Kilda hasn't been traveling so well. But yeah, I like them over the Dockers, but only by, let's say, a goal and some change. I
Yeah.
think this could come down to the wire. Gold Coast has been pretty good in tight finishes this
Yeah.
year, so I wonder if that could really help them push over the top. But like you said, Frio has definitely shown a lot of improvement as of late. I think, some of their young kids. We mentioned Murphy Reed just having a 4 day or a 4 goal performance the other day. I think
Mhm.
they can definitely make things interesting, but I trust the Suns forward line.
No, I'm 100% with you. I think a little bit of the reason why Ben King was quiet is Cal Wilkie is an unheralded fullback, and I think he was fantastic for the Suns. And really, the Suns hurt them not with Ben King, but with some of the other weapons that are on there.
Yeah,
But no Pierce, I think that lets Ben King potentially get off the cuff unless they flip one of these forwards back to play defense. I don't know. I'd have to look and see what stocks are down in Peel. Do they have a big fullback that they can bring up, or does JL try to throw some magnets around? We'll have to see. But no, I agree. Sun's a little bit too good. That's still going to be a fun one though, because there's some
yeah.
mouth watering matchups on the field. I cannot wait. A smile to your faces. I'm pretty sure I know how you're going to tip on this one. GWS NG Stadium up in Sydney take on the Richmond Tigers. I think the Giants win this one, but again, the Tigers are a pesky squad. As the
Mhm.
Giants, you cannot let them be close in the fourth quarter. If you can put them away earlier, then it's a fun day. But if you let them
Yeah,
stay around to the fourth quarter, they'll be a really pain in the tuck.
yeah. Again, Richmond is going to win a quarter occasionally. They've definitely been more competitive than everyone thought this season. But you're right. I'm tipping my Giants. I'm tipping them by 5 goals. Again, Tigers can make it interesting, but again, without Tom Lynch, without Lalor and a few other guys, I will say this: last year Hopper, Toronto, former Giants, of course, they didn't do so well. Kind of acclimating to Uze's system. They look much more comfortable this year. They're both averaging 25 possessions a game, give or take. They're both, top three in the Tigers and tackles. But as I said before, Richmond's one of the worst tackling teams in the competition. So I worry when the orange tsunami comes, I worry that they won't be able to keep up with that run and carry and with those long kicks inside 50 because you have to strap in when that happens. And I don't know if we can trust Richmond's young players to really do it.
Yep.
I will say another guy in their back line, and given how young they are, he's taken on some increased responsibility. I like what Hugo Ralph Smith is doing. If he
Hmm.
gets healthy and kind of, we were talking about the halfback flank, he's a good guy with that mullet flying in the breeze, kicking a penetrating ball down the wing. He can be a classy finisher with the footy. I like what
Yep.
Ralph Smith is doing, but of course he's gonna probably have to take care of Toby Green or maybe Toby Bedford or somebody who's really dangerous with the footy.
Yep.
So I don't know. It could be a long day at the office for Richmond, but they could be surprisingly competitive. Like
Yep.
you said,
It's
Giants
all
just
going to
need to
come down.
start
Yep.
fast and keep their foot on the gas.
Yeah, cannot let that. Like I said, if they're within 2 goals in the fourth quarter, then it becomes a much tougher task. But if you can
Sure.
put them 3, 4, 5 goals down quickly, you can kind of crush their hopes a little bit. and then you can have a little bit easier day. The teams that let them stay around, the Carltons, in their wins, are teams that let them stay around to the fourth quarter. They get more positive momentum. They've got younger legs. They can run it out. But if you kind of let them burn themselves out playing defense because you're scoring a lot, you can kind of, like I said, you can kind of grind them down a little bit because they're still youngsters. There's still some maturity that needs to go into their bodies. But again, they're getting experience. So we jump to Sydney Cricket Ground. My team hosts the Adelaide Crows at the SCG. And as confident as I want to be, I can't lie. This is a terrifying matchup. Cal Mills goes out. McLean comes in. Melican comes back in from his suspension. Justin McInerney potentially could come back. We'll have to see. Does Taylor Adams stay? Does Taylor Adams keep his spot? It'd be fascinating on that. Crows are just so good. Take Taylor Walker will probably come back in uh, off a
Yeah,
bye week. He could have himself some fun. I just don't know if the tall stocks for Adelaide, for Sydney are going to be able to handle Phil Thorpe, Walker, and Fogarty. I think this could be a long day at the SCG. I have the Crows winning this one, unfortunately.
I do too. And I think this one, like you said, and it's not just like how they looked this past weekend. Obviously, Crows were very impressive against a very weak opponent. Swans got blown off the park. But I mean, you'd like to think being back at home, Coxie really pressing on them to put some pride back in the jumper, as we like saying. But yeah, this one could get very ugly. I'm tipping the Crows by 7 goals. I think it might be the most lopsided game of the round until we get to Geelong West Coast. More on that later.
I hope not. I really don't, but because that's a prime time game, and I'm gonna get up to watch it, and I will sit through it, and I will grin my teeth and bear it, but we'll have to see. So, TIO Traeger Park, Alice Springs has the D's go up to Alice Springs as they host the St. Kilda Saints. That's a fun one. Always love this game in Alice Springs. D's Saints. Who do you like?
Yeah, I mean, like you said, it's they don't get to see the footy in Alice Springs all that often, so it's a treat when they do. It's a beautifully scenic place to play footy. Demons
Mhm.
have a pretty good record over there too.
They do.
They're in great form, and I'm tipping them to beat the Saints. I think it'll be closer than we might think, just because St. Kilda's had some games this year where they've bounced back after a bad loss. Like they didn't have too many injuries on the weekend, so I like to think they can rally the troops and at the very least start quicker and with more of a sense of urgency. But I'm tipping the D's here. Let's say by 4 goals. I think they're in good form. They've got a chance again to kind of make a run. The next month of their schedule is fairly soft, I believe. So the D's definitely have an opportunity to kind of put themselves back in the conversation because with the D's, it's weird. Like it seems like there's always something off. There's always something that's a distraction. Oh, rumors that Clayton Oliver isn't happy with his contract. Oh, Petrarca got hurt last year, and there may or may not have been adequate support from the club after a rough injury. Or there's issues with Stephen May got in trouble off field, or Cosby Pickett's out of form. There's always something with the D's, but again, the last few rounds they've been in great form. Goodwin is throwing the magnets around. I think they're, again, kind of a dark horse team that can maybe creep up on some other teams that are already in the A and maybe gain some of that percentage back. That's their biggest obstacle right now. Melbourne's percentage is not good. And we absolutely, need to see a win that can put some sense of belief back into the D's. So I'm sure if they can take the percentage against St. Kilda, they will. But like I said, I think St. Kilda will rise to the occasion at least at the start. These will pull away in the second.
Yeah, not 100% with you. D's just too good. St. Kilda just too darn inconsistent. And the D's best players are playing some of their best footy right now. Because Pickett, Petrarca's starting to find his superpowers. Oliver's starting to play better. Ed Langdon on the wing has found his superpower, being able to run that wing for days and days and days. May and Lever are back together. The fantastic two are back together in the back. And they're
Yep.
getting it done. They're getting it done with a forward line that's kind of stapled together, but it's finding a way to win it. So I think the D's as well. And last but not least, and one as a Cats fan, you have to be licking your chops on this one as they go out to Optus Stadium to face the West Coast Eagles. I'll just make it simple. Cats and Cats big.
Agreed. I mean, there's not much more you can say there, I guess. But in terms of the superlatives, like we mentioned Max Holmes, Bailey Smith earlier. Like again, the Cats are a lot like the Pots. They can hurt you with so many different players in so many
Yep.
different ways. I reckon, maybe some of the unsung heroes at Geelong might be guys like, Mitch Duncan. He just had his 300th. I think
Mhm.
he, as great as he's been, as sturdy of a veteran as he is for that club, it's almost easy to overlook it when you've got so many talented players in that side. I think in general, again, like getting Tom Stewart back, that just immediately lifts the back line that much more.
Yep.
I think they can
And
definitely
Henry
take
and
care.
Henry's back. O'Connor's playing well. DeConning has kind of
Yeah,
figured himself
100
out.
another.
Their
I like.
their defense is kind of back to what it should be. So I think some of the results that they've had this year a little bit is more because they've been unstable. O'Connor, the draft pick, I think is coming in really well. So they've been able to get to wean him into the team a little bit. So this Cats team. I'm looking at a Brad Close, a Brian Myers, a Stengel, a Shannon Neal, a Jeremy Cameron. Like this is one of those fill your boots up boys because this could be one of those. This
Yeah,
could get ugly quickly
it
if
could. And
the
I think,
Eagles don't fire a shot early.
yeah, I think Geelong's going to win by 6 goals here. It's definitely not going to be a fun afternoon in Perth, I don't think. But in terms of, what can the Eagles get out of this? Obviously, stay healthy. In terms of who's actually looking good, I mentioned Brady Hoff earlier. Oscar Allen and Jake Waterman are finally kind of becoming a decent duo in the forward line. It seems like they've never been healthy at the same time, but they played a big role when they finally got that win against St. Kilda 2 weeks ago. And
Yep.
Jamie Cripps has had some moments too. I think he's kind of settling into that. He's mostly been playing half forward flank for them,
Yep.
so I think he's had a pretty decent year, all things considered. But
Mhm.
it's a marathon, not a sprint for the Eagles. They know that. I think further on in the year they should be able to maybe grab a couple unexpected wins as well. But
Yep.
yeah, it's a wooden spoon year. You just want to see some proof of concept for the future.
Yeah, no, it's definitely going to be interesting. As I said last week, I said I want to see the Richmond, and the West Coast just throw a few bones occasionally, just random wins, just to make things more interesting. Because if the gap between these bottom three and everybody else grows too big, it's very concerning for the competition for sure. So
Sure.
well, that is it. Like I said, the other four teams get to put up their feet onto the sofa and enjoy a week off of football. Fancy for them. So, again, Rick, we sit there and the time just melts away when you and I start talking footy.
Yes.
It is so much fun. So, just wanted to check in with you. I know we were talking off, Mike. How are things with the LA Dragons? Because I know that you've got several big things coming up with the Dragons coming up here soon.
That's right. That's right. Appreciate you asking. And yeah, we're in the thick of Metro season. We do 10 aside intra squad scrimmages essentially to sort of get things started off in April and May, and also just to get some of the newer American recruits used to the gameplay and what to expect and all that stuff. So that's been really good, really competitive. We're staying injury free, apart from a few minor bumps and bruises here and there. We're really trying to gain some momentum for the first round of the SoCal Cup, which is going to be June 14th. And then the California Cup, which is going to be hosted by Sacramento, June 28th. Every team in California, so us, San Diego OC, Sacramento, and Golden Gate are all going to be up there. Should be a really fun weekend of footy, and it's going to be a hot one up there, of course. But yeah, we're really looking forward to it this year. And then, as we know, nationals this year will be in Tucson, Arizona, and
Mhm.
that's going to be in mid-October as always. So
Yeah.
yeah, we've had some new recruits, Aussies and Yanks, that we're really excited about. We've got a good core group of guys coming back, including yours truly. So we're definitely excited. And also shout out to our guy Brandon Heiflin. If that name sounds familiar to some of you college ball fans, he was a ex All American punter at San Diego State. He's now a Dragon, and he represented the U.S. Rebos when they played North Texas in the rep match a couple weekends ago. Unfortunately, North Texas came away with the chocolates, but it was great seeing Brandon put on the Rebos jumper. Always good to see any American giving that a crack. And yeah, so we're looking forward to seeing how the rest of the year goes, and we're building some great momentum.
Yeah, it's always fun. This is things are starting to pick up for for the USAFL over here. I know we at the Roosters just finished our 80-35 tournament with Madison, Kansas City, and Minnesota. It was a fun day of footy. A little bit smaller than normal. We only had four teams this year, so each team played three games in a round robin tournament, but a lot of fun. Got to blood some youngsters. We've got some good numbers this year. The way we've turned out again, I've stepped back from the head coaching job as an assistant coach due to some personal reasons. But again, yours truly is just too much of a footy head to just completely step away from that. Not only with the podcast, but I love
Of
coaching. I
course.
love being able to teach this game to some of these youngsters that I see a fire in them when they start playing it. It's so much fun. So that is going to do
It's
it.
great seeing the light bulb go off, right? Like even if
It is so fantastic, and to see them have success and to come off on the sideline and be able to give them a pump up, like excellent job, good job, and to see the smile on their faces, it is one of the more gratifying things that I have that
it is,
opportunity to do is
sure.
to teach these youngsters this wonderful game, and how much camaraderie and mateship you can get from it. It is so much fun. So as per usual, Rick, this is always fantastic to sit down and chat footy with you. Thank you
Always.
again so much for hopping on a podcast. Ladies and gentlemen, that is going to do it for another episode of Donnie's Disposals. Again, keep an eye out. More state league coverage still to come. I know that we have a VFL show coming up very soon. Feel so sorry for my co-host Brendan Rhodes, because I think we're going to have to do 5 weeks because I kind of lost track of my dates here. So that's coming up really soon. More coverage still to come. Again, keep an eye out for that. If you like what you are listening to, please like and subscribe. And that will do it for this episode. And we'll be back with more footy coverage very, very soon.